This is my experiences that day. That day started out much like many days in Iraq. We were woken up about 2:30 a.m. to prepare for a mission, one of many that seemed pointless. Our battalion commander called the Ranger Dominance, but many of the soldiers, such as myself, dubbed them Ranger Dumbass. These missions consisted of 2 companies walking through New Baghdad, unprotected from snipers and IEDs. We dreaded them and despised our battalion commander because of them. That morning, we gathered at the gate of the Fabra Samaya, preparing for our death march into town. It was now about 4 a.m. in the morning when we heard the sirens for incoming. Boom. First one, not very far away from us. Boom, this one a little bit closer. We were now used to this by now, and although afraid inside, we knew that if we ran for cover, we'd look like cowards in the eyes of some of our NCOs. So the majority of us just stood there, praying that a mortar wouldn't land on us. The bravado of trying to look hard was what we lived by. We were 1st Infantry, the toast of the Army, the favorite son. We were the 216 Rangers. We prided ourselves on being tougher than anyone else. But looking into the eyes of these 18 and 19-year-old kids, you could see the fear, the uncertainty. Finally, the mortar stopped. "They know we're coming," said one of the privates in my squad. I tried to reassure him that they didn't know we were coming that day. It was just a coincidence, although not believing my own statement myself. We began our march in the early morning hours. There was hardly anyone on the streets. It was quiet, almost peaceful. You could get caught up in the silence if you weren't so afraid of being shot in the throat or in the thigh by a sniper. Snipers usually went to these areas because they were unprotected, the throat for obvious reasons, and the thigh for your femoral artery. Many of us usually walked with the buttstock of our M4s close to our neck for an almost futile attempt at protecting ourselves. Our mission that day was to cordon off an area of New Baghdad and perform what is called knock-in searches, which basically consists of us knocking on the doors of homes, asking to search the home for militia-related materials, weapons, or bomb-making materials. Although it was more of a demand, and if they refused, it gave us proper cause to destroy the home by searching more vigorously. The hours passed of doing this, and we were finding absolutely nothing, and getting extremely hot and agitated. Some of us began messing around taking pictures because there was nothing else to do. Finally, we were informed that we were closing up shop. I remember being thankful because it was over 110 degrees that day, and the hot water we were drinking was providing no relief. We started funneling into an alleyway to leave the area when some locals on rooftops above us started firing their AK-47s at us. We took cover along a wall and were returning fire. We could hear other fire coming from another platoon just a few blocks from us as well. On the net, we could hear that they were taking small arms as well as RPG fire. That's when I heard it, the very distinct fire of an Apache 30mm cannon. And again, over and over. It was very close. "We need to move to that position now," came over the net. Myself and a team of soldiers I was with began running in the direction where we heard the Apache fire. I was not even close to prepared for the carnage that I was about to walk onto. Myself and the team I was with were the first dismounted soldiers to arrive on the scene. I saw what appeared to have been 3 men on a corner. It was an extreme shock to my system. They didn't look human. I know that they had to be at one time, but the destroyed carnage that I was looking at didn't appear to be. Then there was the smell. The smell was unlike anything I've smelled before. A mixture of feces, urine, blood, smoke, and something else indescribable. I saw an RPG next to one of the men and an AK-47. Crying. I hear crying. Not cries of pain, but that of a small child who had just woken up from a horrible nightmare. I saw that there was a minivan, and the cries appeared to be coming from it. Myself and another soldier, a 20-year-old private, walked up to the passenger side van and looked inside. The private that I was with reeled back, began to vomit, and quickly ran away. What I saw when I looked in the van was a small girl about 4 years old on the passenger side of the bench seat. She had a severe belly wound and was covered in glass. The glass was in her hair and also in her eyes. Next to her, half on the floorboard, with his head resting on the seat, was a boy about 7 years old. He wasn't moving, and from the severe wound to the right side of his head, my first thought was that he was dead. In the driver's seat was who I immediately concluded must have been these children's father by the way he was hunched over the children in a protective manner. There was no way that the father had survived. I immediately grabbed the little girl and screamed for a medic. The medic and myself went into a house behind the van. There was a local man hiding in fear in his kitchen of his home. I yelled out to him to help me. He stood up and quickly grabbed a bucket of water, which the medic and I used to clean the girl off. I pulled as much glass from the little girl's eyes as I could so that she could blink. The whole time thinking, fuck, what the fuck, these are babies. See, my son was born May 31st, 2007. I had yet to see him. And I had a daughter who was barely older than this girl. The medic radioed in that he needed to be that the little girl needed to be evacuated because there was nothing else he can do here. I handed the child to the medic, who then ran the girl to a waiting Bradley armored vehicle. I walked back to the van. I don't know why, or what told me to go back to the van. There was just something making me go back to the van. I looked inside the van again. Did the boy just move? Holy shit, the boy just moved. I grabbed the boy from the van and held him against my chest. I was screaming at this point, the boy's alive, the boy's alive. I started running to the Bradley in hopes that it wasn't leaving. At this point, the boy looked up at me. Just 1 second, sorry. Then his eyes rolled back, and my heart sunk. It's okay, I have you. It's going to be okay. Don't die, don't die. I squeezed him a little bit tighter. I put him into the Bradley as gently as I could. What the fuck are you doing, McCord? It was my platoon leader. You need to quit worrying about these fucking kids and pull security, he screamed. At the time, the only thing I can think of was, Roger that, sir. I said immediately and went to the rooftop to pull security. While on the roof, one of the soldiers took a picture of me. I didn't realize that the blood of the children was all over the front of me. Later that day, when we returned to the FOB, Forward Operating Base, everyone pretty much ignored what had happened. I couldn't. I went to my room to try to clean the children's blood from my uniform, fighting back tears from what I had seen. My emotions were taking over. The very thing that the Army taught us not to do in war, I was doing. My humanity and love for the human race was overcoming everything they taught me. My mind was reeling, the thoughts controlling every ounce of me. It was then I decided I needed to go see a mental health counselor. I went to a staff sergeant who was in my line and asked to speak with him. When I told him my feelings and how I was unable to deal properly in the Army sense with what I had just witnessed, his response was, "You need to suck that shit up. Quit being a pussy and get the sand out of your vagina. If you go to mental health, there will be repercussions like being charged with malingering." I couldn't believe that needing to talk to somebody could constitute a crime in the Army. But like a good little soldier, I said, "Roger that," and went back to my room to cope the only way I knew how, which was by watching as many movies and listening to as much music as I could to escape the reality of what I was. I became extremely angry. I yelled at everyone. I yelled and was angry at my soldiers, my family, the civilians back home, but mostly I was angry with myself. I hated myself for what I was a part of. There were many days in Iraq that I dreamed for an IED or a sniper to take me out and end the pain I was feeling. Ever since that day, I live with this. It's burned into my head. I don't need to watch the movie. I see it every day. I hear the cries of the children when I close my eyes. I smell the smells. When it's quiet, I see the carnage like a slideshow. I'm hoping one day I can sleep a full night without the memories coming back to haunt me. The innocence lost. My friends lost. Hopefully one day I won't be so angry. Hopefully one day I'll help others see that they're not alone in valuing life. Thank you.